A big part of the Democratic strategy in this election is to brand Donald Trump and JD Vance as weird. And that's because they are, but there's another candidate in that category who is being overlooked, and that's Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Recently, I was co-hosting The Young Turks with Cenk Uygur, and RFK's weirdness came up.
Yeah, so look, I want an outsider populist so bad. And so I want to give these third-party candidates a chance. And I interviewed him here on the show, and he has a couple of policies that are really good. His money in politics policy is perfect. It's exactly Wolfpack's policy, wolf-pack.com, okay? His housing policy is amazing. It would get rid of private equity, being able to buy our homes. It would help the housing market more than any other policy by a landslide. And he's an interesting cat. And I want to like him personally, and I'll tell you why in a second. And I want to like a populist outsider going up against what used to be two decrepit guys, and that opened the door for him a lot more before Biden dropped out of the race. But he does things that are so monumentally weird that it just makes it impossible. Who finds a dead bear and brings it to Central Park? Like, when the mainstream media is going to attack any outsider as weird, radical, etc., don't help them, minimize. They're gonna find something on everyone, right? Or they're gonna pretend to find something on everyone. But RFK Jr. is like, here's another softball, here's another one, here's another one. Like, oh, what are you doing to me?
So Cenk and I don't agree on RFK as somebody who's worth considering, but in the spirit of fairness, I understand why. I get wanting to look for a third party candidate. Just like many of you, I'm sick of the two-party duopoly. And while Harris and Walz are a moderate improvement on Biden now that he's stepped aside, I still don't feel like I have a party or I have a candidate that fully represents my political views, and maybe you feel the same. So from that perspective, I understand where Cenk is coming from, but there is weirdness about RFK, and it goes beyond the dead bear story. There are things in his platform that make me recoil. His shifting stance on abortion, his confusing approach to solving climate change. He argues that we need free market solutions to address climate change because the regulatory agencies have been captured by companies, apparently not realizing that the same companies doing the capturing of these regulatory bodies are the same ones that would be driving the free market solutions. They've shown you they have no interest in addressing climate change if it hurts their bottom line. He's tried to claim that school shootings could be the cause of big pharma while covering for the gun lobby. But let's talk about this dead bear story.
It seems as if someone brought the thing there, which is really sad.
So if you are unfamiliar, he was driving upstate New York for a day of falconry, saw a dead bear laying on the side of the road, loaded it into his car with the intent of eating it later, but then, after the day got away from him, took it to Central Park and put it in a bike lane to make it look like a bicyclist hit the bear.
A woman in a van in front of me hit a bear and killed it, a young bear. So I pulled over and I picked up the bear and put him in the back of my van because I was going to skin the bear, and it was very good condition, and I was going to put the meat in my refrigerator. And you can do that in New York State. You can get a bear tag for a roadkill bear. I wasn't drinking, of course, but people were drinking with me who thought this was a good idea. And I said, I had an old bike in my car that somebody had asked me to get rid of it. I said, let's go put the bear in Central Park and we'll make it look like he got hit by a bike. Funny for people.
Weird. It's strange. It's odd behavior. And to make things even more bizarre, he comes forward telling this story in a video he posted of him retelling it to Roseanne Barr, the first celebrity to endorse QAnon.
Quincy Magoo wrote in, RFK Jr. hangs out with Roseanne Barr, even sicker. Okay, so I was thinking, you're gonna tell the country about how it's not weird that you dropped off a dead bear in Central Park, and you chose as your vehicle to do this a video with Roseanne Barr. What are you doing, Bobby? What are you doing? Like, so it makes it really hard to say, hey, let's have an open mind. So here's more. I do declare, wrote in a member on tyt.com/team. When you shock Roseanne with your story, you've lost the plot. And she was like, oh my God, that's so crazy when you've got Roseanne Barr reacting that way, come on.
Somebody who has been cozied up to Trump and the right for years. Somebody who is so radical, so off their rocker, that they got written out of their own show. The show was named Roseanne. And then, of course, there's his anti-vaccine, anti-science takes. And that's where things get really alarming. He is a colossal peddler of misinformation. And that's what makes the bear story even more bizarre.
Okay, and Amy, back to YouTube member, says, also, can we talk about the fact that he was going to eat a rotten roadkill dead bear, but couldn't take the COVID vaccine? These are devastatingly good points, in my opinion. So I agree with him on the things that I just mentioned, and those are big ones, housing and money and politics. But I disagree with him on other things, including vaccine, and especially, as Amy points out, vaccine versus eating a dead bear.
The New Yorker profile that covered the bear story and a lot of RFK's upbringing, I thought was pretty insightful. You get a better idea of who he is, and this is somebody who clearly is experiencing trauma from the loss of his father. For years, he resorted to drug abuse to deal with that trauma, and then from there, he tried to find things and vices that could fill that hole within him. This is totally commonplace, but it does inform his behavior now. And Cenk has a theory on that, which might not be too outlandish.
I had a friend who lost his dad young, and he lives a little wild like RFK Jr. does. He reminds me of him a lot, okay? They also believe the same kind of theories, etc. This guy's one of my best friends. And so I know why he does that, and he tells me why he does that, especially when he gets drunk, which is, hey, listen, when I lost my dad in my own arms, I knew life was short. So what is lived cannot be unlived. And so I'm gonna live. And I feel like RFK Jr. lived that kind of life. And given that his father was shot when he was young and he got that same lesson, I'm not at all surprised by that. And that's the kind of guy that I normally like in real life. Do I go falconeering? No. Would I know what to do? No. But do I kind of want to go falconeering with Bobby Kennedy? Yeah, okay, because and now, by the way, if you say, hey, while he was doing that, he did other bad things and he took it too far, super fair. That's not, you don't get to live life to its maximum at other people's expense, right? So I'm not here to adjudicate that because I don't know the details of those stories, okay? But I know that that's why he does what he does, and that's part of why I root for him. But this is too much, and I don't just mean the dead bear. If it was just the dead bear, fine. And look, I've defended him on the brain worm. A lot of people have that condition. It sounds super funny, and he shouldn't have said it in a deposition. We can go on and on and on. But all of these things are piled up. But the most important thing is, when you make an extraordinary case against vaccines, and that's what you're mainly known for, and you disagree with 99% of the world's doctors and scientists, it behooves you to be super rational on everything else so that you gain enough credibility for us to go, I wonder if he's right about the vaccines and 99% of the world's doctors are wrong. That's a really high bar. And when you got the dead bears and the brainworms, etc., much harder to get there.
You could totally see this as a pattern with people who experience grief very early in life. That's totally understandable. But what's alarming is he's allowing that behavior to affect his policies. He's allowing it to affect him as an adult. And consequently, he comes out with really bizarre stances and policies. In some cases, like on abortion, totally inconsistent and flip-flops whenever it's convenient for him. So I don't really trust the guy. And again, I understand why you would look for a third-party candidate, but he clearly isn't the answer. There are questions around his ballot access, the polling isn't high, he doesn't even stand a chance at winning. And that is not because he's not included in debates. He has a colossal social media following. People know who he and the Kennedys are, but people are off-put by his behavior, and specifically by his stances. And it's not really hard to believe that Democrats sussed that out early about him. And I'm talking Democratic voters, not the party. But voters didn't throw their support behind him because of things like his anti-vax stance. And then you see him now, recently, asking Trump for a job, specifically to do health and human services work. This is not somebody who any sensible voter would want in that position. And unfortunately, there are a lot of misinformed people who throw their support behind him for things like that, but for a variety of different reasons. And they should not discount people who are genuinely looking for other options in our political system. The political duopoly is a problem, but RFK Jr. is not the solution.